This is the Business Chat Podcast. Welcome back to the Business Chat, Women in Construction. It's a construction series, the business of building. And as I mentioned on the other episodes, with these young ladies were kind enough to respond to my very random, impulsive, hey, can you be on the show? And Cassie's no exception. How's it going, Cassie? Thanks for being on today.
Good. Thanks, Drew, for having me.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Well, Cassie, before talking to you, I was mentioning actually the other guests on the show, young ladies, and it's really neat just to get three of y'all on this week. The diversity is just head spinning. And we talked a little bit about your background and your story, and you're going to tell everybody about that today. But yeah, Women in Construction Week, and you have a unique story that I think a lot will relate to. And we're going to hear what it's like being a woman in construction. But before we get into that, what are you drinking today, Cassie? Tell us all about it.
I am drinking a wine from Cinder Winery, which is a mile from where I'm at right now.
Yes. Stumble distance.
I've been a member there for, probably 7 or 8 years. It's a pretty large winery here in Boise. And cool story is,
this is a cool story.
I actually got to make a wine of my own last year. I went to, with a bunch of friends, we went to a blending Sunday where we got to spend the whole day Sunday blending wine.
Yeah.
Just down the road. And I just got to pick it up on Friday. I got a whole case of this wine to let sit and age. But I'm drinking their famous Tempranillo, a 2020 Tempranillo.
So that's their mainstay, everyone they're known for. Very cool. Very cool. All right. And we'll link, I mentioned to the guests and to the audience listening, if you're hearing this going, I'm in Boise or heaven there, we'll link Cinder, Snake River Valley, Idaho, you mentioned to me. That's their locale,
That's where
right?
they grow a lot of the grapes, Snake River Valley, but they're based right here in Boise along with a lot of other great wineries. Based
right in Boise, and they're local as local gets, so we'll link them. I brought more beer from Michigan, big shock, but I've got American IPA, very underwhelming name for this very nice IPA from Bearded Lamb Brewing in Plymouth, Michigan. I was there yesterday. Guys at Bearded Lamb, great job as usual. And so to kick this off, we'll do the virtual cheers. Cassie, cheers to you.
Cheers, Drew.
Thanks for being on the show. Well, great. Again, we're kind of interrupting my season 3 of the Industry Pros to sort of drop in these 3 episodes that were going to be in my season 4 construction. And then just because, agency life, Sue, we get busy, some smarter ladies on my team were like, hey, it's like Women's History Month, man. And like, it's Women in Construction Week next week, So here we are the week before recording this. And I thought, great, let's do this. What I'm asking all of you is just to kind of tell your story. I mean, anyone with the ability to click the link and see your LinkedIn, see, where you went to college, where you study, what you did, but tell us the story. You tell the story, right? It's more fun than reading your LinkedIn. Yeah.
So I did graduate from Boise State, born and raised here in Idaho, escaped immediately after graduation and decided I wanted to go to Portland, Oregon, the bigger city. Boise. I worked there for a few years, doing tech marketing. Mm-hmm. Then I had a really good friend of mine who lived in Washington, D.C. And I thought, you know what? I should go live on the East Coast for a while. And 20-something, why not? Landed on the East Coast and stayed 7.5 years. So still doing
Whereabouts
tech
on the East Coast, Cassie? Where were you there?
I was right outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland.
Maryland. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
So loved my time over there. Don't regret it at all. It was just great to live in a totally different side of the country and experience it. Moved back here for still yet another tech marketing job right here in downtown Boise. And then I was working a different company and got a call from one of my best friend's husbands and said, I bought a pipe company in Indiana. I really need somebody I can trust to run it.
I just bought a company.
I go, what kind of pipe are we talking about?
Right.
And I mean, I took the leap of faith that, if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. And it was something so outside of what I've been doing for 15 years. I thought it would be a great experience to try that and get to a totally different industry. And I went head in and I said, let's do it. A year and a half into it, we got acquired by our competitor. So I think that's a good sign. I did my job. I sold what I needed to sell to scare them. Yeah. And then eventually that's what led to Pipe ReLine Solutions, right? I decided that rather than selling one product, I wanted to learn about a lot of different products. And there's got to be more out there to pipe relining and split lining products than just the product we manufactured and what we represented. And so I started educating myself. And then I decided I wanted to build a consulting business that essentially brought in a plethora of products and come in more as like a consultant / distributor.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah.
5
And so
years.
that, I mean,
hype world.
man, you like just soared through that. That was so great. You've done this before. Well, I should mention, and I'm going to say it now while we're in the first 5 minutes. Cassie's not exactly new to this, y'all. She's got 2 podcasts. You have ReLine Live. Am I saying that right? ReLine Live. That's an educational series, and you can get credit from that. And she'll get it. We'll talk more about that at the end. ReLine Unknown. This is her podcast that she's telling me she's going to start putting out more content for. You're a member of the Women in Construction there in Boise. You talk and you grapple. You've done marketing. You're not shy with me. So you're very much you're the woman in the workplace that also is used to being behind the microphone a little bit, as it were. And on the marketing and, like you said, on the tech side. How neat. So if I heard you right, and I love that we don't know one another and I'm just hearing the story fresh, you basically just got a phone call and were dropped into like height and construction, and you took your knowledge and went, okay, general kind of business management and marketing. Is that right? Kind of, you just kind of jumped in and learned as you went. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I knew how to market. So marketing the product wasn't the hard part. I had never done direct business to business sales where I was actually in a sales role. The biggest learning curve for me was manufacturing. I was running the manufacturing plant and production schedules. And I mean, like when an order comes in, should we predict and have a certain amount of pipe on the ground? Should we hedge our bet, or should we let the pipe sit there and not cut it and not produce it until I actually have an order in hand? All these things are when I had to learn as I went.
Wow.
How to stock the right amount of inventory, because there's obviously a cost of doing business. How much do we want to spend and sit on until we actually sell it? So those were the learning curves.
Yes.
I had never dealt with OSHA before. I
that
had
was a
no
wake-up
idea.
call, huh?
Yeah. No idea what I was going to have to learn to run a crew at a manufacturing plant, and the inspection and the drug testing. And these guys are working with heavy machinery. And so there was a lot of that was the part that I definitely, and I had to learn the industry. Who are the players? Who were the who should I go after first to even market to and to sell to? Because this wasn't an industry I had any sort of relationships in.
Wow. So as a fellow marketer, by the way, I can empathize, because in a very different capacity, I jumped into an offer that I'm grateful to this day to get into the SaaS space in Austin, Texas with startup on paper. They'd been around, but it was pretty much starting up, pivoting construction software company, coming from kind of as a freelance marketer and getting some work on my laptop and sitting around Starbucks after my job with the utility company. And kind of like you, very different in a lot of ways, but in the same sense, it was just like, welcome to marketing this, and here's the end user. Yeah. And within 6 months, I was just immersed into contractors and bonding and the way they do payroll, and OSHA, and just how critical their software was on just the payroll side. But just understanding how volatile it can be and how much risk these guys take every day. I was telling one of the folks I was talking to, you have new appreciation in cities like Boise, where you just see, and your Nashville's, where you see cranes everywhere, and you're going, I actually know what it took. I have some understanding that there's 30 full-time people that had to work hard to get that crane up, to run that job. It's mind-boggling. So it's cool to know that you also went through a little bit of that head rush, because sometimes I'm explaining to people and they're like, that doesn't sound exciting. I'm like, well, it's not a tour, it's not rock and roll, but it is really neat. And it's something that, you either have the industry experience or you don't. And when you don't, it's a learning curve. So very cool. Very cool. So we're talking, again, the theme here is there's so much that we could talk about. We can't cover it all. Is you being
I just like that we get to do it with our drinks, Drew.
Well, when the team
timed this where we could actually pour drinks, made it even when you sent me the invite, I said, I can't say no to that.
Yeah. No, and when I drew the short straw on being the guy on the team to have sort of the podcast, which is what this is, for those of you listening going, what's the whole point of this guy that's interviewing people? I'll tell you what it is we were showing our capability as an agency to do some podcast marketing. Now this is my muse. It's fun. I genuinely like just learning and meeting people. But I said, can I bring a beer to it? And I've got some smarter people on my team. They're going like, oh, this guy's going to get us shut down. But seems to work, right? All the guests seem to seem to appreciate it. Or coffee or tea or kombucha if you're listening and you want to be on the show. This is not strictly a beer and wine club. But Cassie, again, this is really cool to see for young. I'm thinking of, and I don't know why, but I'm thinking of young ladies out there overwhelmed with the opportunities, and then others that are kind of stuck in their job in a rut maybe, or just kind of hearing you a little jealous, kind of going like, man, I'd sure like to make just a big change. What would you say to young women, not in construction like you, right? In marketing, tech, their customer rep in the healthcare space, whatever, going, how do you just jump into construction? And what other jobs like business development and marketing do you see now that you're in Pipe ReLine and you've watched it? How many other careers have that kind of 80% of the skills carry over, but you just have to learn the industry? I don't know if you could rattle off a few or what you've gleaned from other roles where you go, oh, this wasn't that hard. I wish I would have known or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, marketing, I mean, as you know, Drew, it literally it applies across every industry. So
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, and when we learn in college, when we get a marketing degree, which is what I got, you can do it in healthcare, you can do it in construction, you can do it in tech. It doesn't matter. You're marketing a product and you're marketing to a consumer. You have to learn that target audience, just like we were taught. That can translate across any industry. Right. What you really got to enjoy is the people you're working with. What you really need
bingo.
Yeah. I mean, the people you're working with and the industry you're in, and like getting involved in the right organization.
Right.
The Women in Construction organization, as soon as I started Pipe ReLine and I found the chapter in Boise, I dove in with them because I wanted to meet other women, even though, one's from a glass company and a bunch of them are from actual heavy civil construction. Some are insurance agents that handle the bonding of the construction companies.
Right.
We're all in this same industry together. And so it's really fun to come network. We offer scholarships for students. If you wanted to go back and get a project management degree, which quite frankly, like that would be probably something of interest to me now, is actually managing a project, because that in and of itself doesn't meet. I mean, you can manage projects in a tech company from start to finish, or you can manage them in a construction company. That's a skill set that crosses over. So find an industry.
I like what you said about the people though. Right.
Yeah.
The passion. Yeah. And the people's key, because so many folks, I think, get their degree, get training in the very needed, by the way, world of nursing and medical, services, but being boots on the ground, go through the school, and somewhere along the way, and I know a few of these guys, right? And they like wake up 6 years in and go, I hate this.
Yeah. I
hate the hours of the people, and I didn't really know it. And now I'm just sort of starting to like heads up to careers. But I would say, yeah, construction does offer a lot more than, and that's on the surface. I think folks going into tech school and trades and going to state university don't realize that, man, there's some really high paying and some nice diversity skill in construction that otherwise seems like a bunch of heavy equipment and swinging axes and shovels and reflector vests and dirt, when that's, 5% of what's happening. No knock to y'all out in the field, by the way, taking it for the team and freezing your rear end off and building our country. It's a statement merely saying, hey, like, if that's not you, there's folks like Cassie in there killing it, growing the business. And hey, and that's another thing we should bring up. You don't just get nothing wrong with these things. You don't just work in the office, manage projects and market. Tell folks what it looks like a day in the life. Let's talk about that for a minute.
So I try and keep my travel to about 1 week a month. I mean, that in a perfect world, that's a loose term where I'm like, I'd like to be in the field 1 week a month, whether it's at an installation, whether it's pipe inspections, whether it's lunch and learns with engineering firms. It's another thing we should talk about. Construction is driven by engineers. It starts in the engineering office and then it goes from there. Nothing gets done without an engineering firm or person. And whether you work for the city as an engineer to design what is going to go out into the field and what we see getting put up. So that's another very interesting industry that we kind of forget. We think of engineers as very techy, that they must work for software companies. Like, no, there are very heavy civil engineers and wastewater engineers and stormwater engineers. Right. So keep that in mind. I work with a couple of lady engineers that I'm very amazed by their knowledge and what they bring to the table. But yeah, day in the life. I mean, I get to do fun stuff like this. I get to do pipe inspections, which I think is probably one of the funnest part of my jobs. When I get a call from a municipality or even an engineering firm that says they've got a project can you come look at it? Sometimes I'll run out the door if it's a 2-hour drive and be like, yes, do it. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Other times I'll schedule it and I'll make a whole week trip depending on where it is and where I'm going. But yeah, that's the fun part.
Right. I'm looking at your LinkedIn right now, and folks are seeing that are watching the video version of this. And the hard hat reflector vest, Cassie, the Cassie now we see in the office we're talking to today. It's just good for them to hear. It's the same person, right? And so it's nice. And I don't know, what do you think? Do you think it's nice getting out in the field too, to change it up? I think your role sounds nice. So you can go see what's being consulted on, built, worked on, as well as come back in the office. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's the best part. I mean,
right.
Like the back of my vehicle literally has my hard hat, a vest, my muck boot, and they just sit there. They're always there because I never know when I'm going to need them. And I enjoy being able to go to a job site, and sometimes they want to hear my opinion and sometimes they don't. I can't.
Hey, that's guys or girls, by the way. Anyone hearing that, I can tell you right now, my team sometimes goes, actually, Drew, we'll pass. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the best part, but then I get to spend days like today where it's a lot of calling and scheduling meetings for a trip I have coming up because I have a big project that I'm going to install in Portland. So if I'm going to spend 3 or 4 days in Portland, I want to meet with some of the engineers that I've done calls with, but I've never got to have like a cup of coffee with. So, I get to balance that too, where I can spend one day on a job site and then a couple other days in cities that I want to meet people face to face.
And you just reminded people that there are things happening in Portland. There are people building things. There's a receiving end. I'm joking. I tease Portland all the time. Sometimes, is it dropped off the map? Is it still there? Was it always a hologram? What's going on in Portland?
Seattle's a quieter city for me right now. Portland's doing things. Seattle's been pretty quiet.
Portland, man. We'll do a whole series on Portland. Things you didn't know about, first of all, the state of Oregon, but also Portland. Yeah. Man, this is so cool. I'm always like, I get on these, I get frustrated by the time, but I go, this is good for me to constrain the conversation because I want to hear more about Pipe ReLine, more of your story. It's so neat. There's so many components of your education, moving, marketing. It's just it's an all around fun American story too, of just opportunity, right? The phone call. I bought a company, I need someone to run it like that. You can't make this stuff up, man. That's super cool. What we want to drill in on for the audience today, primarily on LinkedIn, some of our network is just, again, you, not me, you telling the story of now what it's been like. You've been a woman in tech and marketing. You still are in a lot of ways in construction and construction services. Talk to me about what that was like to move into this space as now your muck boots and your hard hat investor in the back of your truck, your vehicle. You're showing up on these, showing up in Portland on, I would assume, combination of offices, but some job sites in the field. And yeah, just for you, has it been, because I don't want to color this. If you're like, you know what, everybody's a gentleman. They're cool. There's not some boys club male chauvinist thing, or there's what I'm expecting, a mix, right? It's still changing. We've come a long way. We've been saying, but we've got a ways to go. What's it been like for you though, in terms of that aspect?
Well, I'll give you the good and the bad. It's, and I say this with the best of intentions.
Sure.
It's easier for me to probably get a meeting with someone that's a male than my sales guy in Denver trying to call into a male industry and him getting a meeting.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like if I'm calling a public work maintenance manager, road maintenance manager, he might be willing to talk to me a little longer than Michael on the phone. Not necessarily, but historically that's what has seemed like that happen. Mm-hmm. But then going into a job site situation, Michael could maybe show up on a job site in Denver and I could show up to a job site in Portland, and they might actually think Michael's actually installed this pipe before, which he's even worked in the industry less than me. And neither of us have ever actually installed it. We've sat next to a crew and watched it be installed, trained on it. And now we can guide a crew who's never done it, and we can stand on the sidelines and show them from start to finish what to do. I'm a woman and he's a man, so they might listen to him. And I have had crews who will let me just jump in and say, here's what you should be doing. They'll do it. And they'll go, why weren't you here 3 hours ago? And I'm like, well, because I told you guys I heard you weren't starting till 9 a.m. I didn't know you were going to start at 7.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
But then I've been on a crew where they just truly did not want to listen. They were like, no, we got this. We watched the video. I said, I made the video. So if you watched it, you can listen to me.
Right.
I literally made the video.
Yeah.
And then they're like, nope, we got it. Okay. I'll just let you sit here and try. And 2 hours
Have you
later,
ever wanted
I'm like,
to, here's an honest question for you, because I would sure want to do, so flip it, a guy getting into a woman's industry. I mean, this makes me think again, there's probably all kinds of, HR rules and breaking, or this isn't PC, but do you remember,
No.
like, was it Tootsie? What was the one, the old movie with Rob, I'm trying to think, Dustin Hoffman? But it's the guy that, that dresses up as a woman and comes in.
oh, yeah.
To
He's
day
a
in the life,
secretary, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, do you ever want to just like put in your email, like Bob or something, and then be like, gotcha, that was me. I mean, like, I wonder if that, and you're right now, your team's watching this going, what a clown. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But yeah, I think, I think the suspicion sometimes from a male perspective, which is the only one I can have in my experience, is just, man, like we have cultures in every industry. It's not just construction. That's the one thing I'm picking up after years of marketing for construction, being in the tech side. It's all over the place. On the creative side, same thing. And I know that in the construction world, ladies in the office, guys in the field, is just generally, and I don't even think people mean anything bad by it. They just seen so much of that perpetuated over and over that, like you said, they're a little bit like, you made the video, but you're like, yeah, the chick, dude. Yes, I know. So, okay, you're kind of confirming my suspicions, but would you answer this one, a real clear question? Would you say, or what would you say have been some things that you've noticed in your shorter time, right? You've put in good years, but without having 25, 30 years to look back on, have you noticed, though, that there's a bit of a hybrid happening, some change, some positive? You mentioned you're with the Women in Construction chapter, I guess they would call that, right, in Boise. But have you noticed just good, positive things happening with ladies like yourself in your field?
Yeah. So I've been in the pipe industry for 5 years, give or take a few months.
It's a good amount of time. Yeah.
And I joined the Women in Construction Boise chapter, National Women in Construction, just our chapter. But I go to the national conferences. I go to the Pacific Northwest, who we're involved in. So I go to their conferences, the spring conferences and stuff like that. So when I started, I want to say we were roughly at 30 members. And in 2 years, we're at, I want to say, close to 60 now. So we've almost doubled in 2 years, which just speaks volumes of our industry and where it's headed. And there's more women working for these large companies. There's more women starting their own construction companies. If you follow me on LinkedIn, Women in Construction Week, I'm going to be highlighting these women all next week, like a lot of these different women and what they're doing, whether they own a company, whether they're an engineer, like how are they changing infrastructure and what we perceive as women in construction. We're not just the admins and we're not just the HR people. We are actually, we can be the people that are out there on the job site. Like, you're going to see more and more of it. I really, truly believe that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it can be a combination of, women in the workplace in general. And that's the whole theme of the history, women's history this month, which is complex and has so many other things to talk about, right? It's not just this microcosm of construction or women in workplace. It's women's history. Great thing women have done. In fact, we're on Spotify now, our agency the other day. It's same ideas. We're just making a playlist each month. And I did it again. I went, oh, this is a really good opportunity to show like women in rock and roll, man, and pop music. And it was really funny because I can think of 5, 10 just on top of my head. But I started going, wait a minute, there's Debbie Harry from Blondie. Oh yeah, Madonna. Oh yeah, I can't leave out this. Next thing I know, I'm like, ladies, I think we need to make 10 playlists for women in rock and roll because again, it's a psychological thing. It's a representation thing because you assume, it's a boys club. And it kind of is a lot of these things, but you're highlighting a couple things that women can do multiple jobs. Women can be in construction and thrive. And women like you are CEOs and have a nice, complex kind of background that isn't just like, hey, I did this from the time I was 18 out of need. And there's a lot of you out there listening. They're in construction going, man, this doesn't relate to me. I'm in the field. Cassie's here as a living, breathing example going, there's room to move laterally and advance and a lot more in construction than just where you started. And in your case, you completely left a general kind of way of working and moved into the crazy world of construction, but brought your skills. So I think that's really fantastic because, again, there's a lot of folks out there, ladies listening, inspired by your story, honestly. Well, great. I mean, we're coming up on time, but we have a little bit of time too. I wanted to make sure we're covering your story, not Drew's commentary. So shameless plug time, Cassie. So you've been bringing up a lot of things here. recap for folks listening, because I heard it and you told me, but I just want folks in the construction space in Boise to know who you are. Maybe somebody hasn't heard of you. I hope that's not the case, because you're a marketer and you guys look like a real polished organization. Pipe ReLine Solutions does.
So we are a consulting and distribution company. I represent about 15 different manufacturers, give or take. Everything from stormwater, which can be like CMP pipe, which is corrugated metal pipe, to pressurized pipe, which is your sewer pipes, your potable water, your forced water mains. So when there's any deterioration or there's failing pipes, there's issues in the pipes of any kind, they start looking for solutions. Do they have to rip and replace? That's the number one thing that they think. We got to tear up roads. We got to close roads. We're going to have to detour traffic for 3 months. That is not typically the case. A lot of times you can bring in someone like me and Michael, who we cover 8 states in the Northwest, all the way from Washington, Oregon to Colorado, down to Nevada, Utah. So we have a very large territory that we cover, hence why we travel.
Right.
But we come in and we can look at the situation and we can give advice and say, you know what, we have 3 products. We have maybe only 1 product. We might not have a product. We might say you let it go too long and you really do have to rip and replace.
Yeah.
But it's not very often we have to say that. We can actually come in and typically offer solution.
Is that, and just now I'm genuinely curious, can this kind of, scoping in our work, it's RFP, but just in general, can that bid and some of that inspection be done and sent to y'all to get it in a, some kind of 10,000 foot, like, yeah, we're going to need to go see that in person, but do people send in photo, video, infrared? I mean, talk to me a little about the tech side of that. How does that look when they're,
yeah. Okay. You could have cameraed that pipe already. You could have already walked through and sent us pictures and up close of the issues, joint separations, resting on the bottom of the pipe.
Right.
You could have already cameraed the sewer pipe. And then we could maybe say, you know what, if you want more data, we offer these really in-depth inspection tools, which sometimes they have to go out for an RFP, but if it's an emergency situation or they just really don't have the time, they can sometimes do a one-off and just bring us in, have the inspection done. Where we do basically contract with the crew. Yeah. I've never gotten into the wanting to have my own crew yet. But we have some really good partners throughout our territories, construction companies that are very versed in slip lining, that know what they're doing, that we can bring into jobs, whether they're out to bid or not,
That's neat. By the way, I think you could handle a crew. I feel like it's a gut thing. I'm like, I think you'd be all right. You're not wanting to.
Talk to me in a few years, Drew. Yeah. We'll see where my business grows.
I think you're leaning more towards the winery side, joining Cinder, maybe working with them. No, I think you have you have so many skills. You have such a neat narrative too, and even the way you're talking about this and approaching it is instilling enthusiasm and stuff. I think in a lot of folks listening, because you really get your space. You're not doing it with an eye roll of like, it was a job that came up. This is like something that you've really gotten your hands around. We're looking at your team on your site. You guys are a lean, nimble, kind of cool group that, like you said, doesn't running the whole crew, provides kind of that really nice in-depth analysis and solutions for folks that, something to be totally candid, I didn't fully understand. That's true. There's more often than not probably times you guys can come in and reduce the time that, like you said, DOT, whoever's got to close down semi-major to major infrastructure that doesn't need to be. So very cool. Yeah. And if folks are looking to engage with you, obviously we'll link the website for Pipe ReLine Solutions. I want to close though and recap what you mentioned. You guys need to follow Cassie. She's doing a lot of cool stuff. She's got Pipe ReLine Live. That's the podcast educational series, and Pipe and ReLine Unknown. So ReLine Live, ReLine Unknown, and those are on all the interwebs or whatever. Yep. Cassie, so they can okay, cool. Yep. Cool.
YouTube channels. We put them out on all the different Spotify and everything.
Yeah. You got a little marketing posse over there at Pipe ReLine. We've been checking that out, man. That's freaking great. I mean, that's the other thing that in the short time I've been doing this, and was suited in our 8th year. We're pretty young, but like the construction marketing we do, that was a head turn for our crew when you were pulled into like, okay, Cassie accepted. People did a double take when there's like 2-3 people with a marketing title at that little pipe thing you found over there, Drew. I go, yeah, right. It's just changing times because we've got these billion-dollar organizations with a lot of employees doing big stuff, and there's not a whole lot happening. And then we get a scrappy little group that's just doing some, excavation work, and they're like, they roll out the drones and the webs and stuff. So it's fun watching, from my perspective, even all of it change, both women in the workplace. I'm going, wow, CEO, this is it. And check out, they've got marketing. And so all of it's good change. So, well, this has been fun. 30 minutes, never covers it, like I said, but what can I say? Everybody. Yep. So follow Cassie. We'll link everything about her company, what she's doing. And we will sign off and say again, Cassie, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
A final cheers to you. Yep.
Cheers.
We'll be in touch. All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Talk soon.